Y Combinator just open source an entire AI repository that allows you to run your entire company the same way that they do it, but nobody's really using it correctly. So I decided that I had to try it out and help you understand how to do this. And the craziest part is that I typed a single command in under 90 seconds. It was able to build an app better than what most other terminals or even a full stack developer would have been able to make. Y Combinator calls it a multiplayer agent harness, which literally means that multiple people on the team can now use the same AI system without ever leaking their passwords or secrets to each other. Now, the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to admit is that most of us are not using AI the way it's supposed to. So go watch it before anyone else can, and I hope you have fun.
Hello, everybody. This is Sanket. Welcome back. Every week, I go through trending repositories, interesting experiments that you can do with AI, tools, setups that can help you become a better AI builder. And most of the things that I encounter are usually wrappers around something else. But this one made me stop because it's something that an entire company can run on. And I know for a fact that it's more credible than the others because this comes from YC, who open sourced the actual repository that they're using internally to run themselves. It's called QM. And the best part about this is that this is broken down into 3 separate words: multiplayer agent harness. And before we move on, let's just break these 3 words down because they set the foundation of what's to come. An agent is something that you already know, an AI that's been given tools, can run commands, read and write files, do real work. Harness is important. This demonstrates that QM is not a model. It doesn't ship you an AI. It's a scaffolding around the agent, its memory, its permissions, credentials, keychain, and its ability to read and write from Slack, databases, your email, and multiplayer, which I feel nobody else is doing. Most agent setups are single player, one person, one chat, one context window. QM is built from the ground up for a whole team to share the same agent system at the same time without crossing over each other. So before we get into the features and what all can this do or our demo, I'd like to go over the architecture and actually understand how it's built. So the first part is Postgres, which is the database. Then there's the headless core and a per scope sandbox. So to create a mental model for you, let's just assume that in QM, every person who's in a team gets a room, and let's just call it their scope. And a scope is basically a private workspace with different things bolted to it, its own memory, its own files, its own view of the credentials system, because you don't want the intern and the founder to have, or their agents to have the same credentials, its own permissions and its own durable sandbox. For those of you who don't know what a sandbox is, for now, just assume that it's a little computer that stays up between sessions. So whenever your agent is working on something today, it's still there tomorrow. So my scope as a person in the organization and your scope are going to be walled off. You can't see my scope, I can't see your scope, but we can both step into a shared room like a Slack channel. And in that shared scope, we can collaborate. So private and shared running side by side. And that's the entire gist of the repository. And underneath, there is a headless core that does the reasoning, talking to a Postgres, spinning up a separate sandbox per scope. And everything the agent does, it does as you, with your identity, your permissions, and it's all logged. So the important question is that why would somebody use this and who is this for? And if you think about most of the teams that are using AI right now, everybody's got their own agentic systems, and different people in the organization just have one common brain, but they have their own setups. There is no shared memory mostly. There is no permissions, no audit trail, and no way for one person's AI to hand off work to somebody else's AI. So it's like a disconnected ecosystem inside a single organization. And QM is the answer to, okay, so how do we run a company on agents systematically and shared memory where it's supposed to be shared, walled off where it shouldn't, with real permissions, an audit log, and how to manage agents that can hand over work to each other. There's a full native web UI as well. And we check out in the demo how do we run this. But the part is that if you're a solo hobbyist or you're like an indie hacker or you're vibe coding, this is probably more than what you would need. But if you have like a team of 3 to 4 people and you've always wondered that how to get my agents talking to my coworkers' agents without revealing something specific and just being in control of what's being shared, then this is the exact thing that you need. All right, so let's stand this thing for real and build an actual working project. I'm going to be using Codex as the brain, and partly to prove that the swappable brain thing is there. And the thing that we're building today is small on purpose because I want this demo to be super clean. An internal bug report tool for a fake company that I'm going to spin up, and a little web app where anybody can file a bug, dashboard that lists them, and there's going to be a cron that posts a daily bug count onto Slack. It's going to be small, but it touches almost half of the feature list that's described in this repository. So I feel it's going to cover most of the important things, including the setup. So let's get started. All right, so this is the setup with one QM in it. I'm just going to point it at my org name, and I'm going to tell it that I'm deploying this to fly.io. That's the clever part. This doesn't dump a giant code base because it materializes a deployment skill that has been given. I basically gave the entire repository to Codex, and I had Codex set everything up. Codex took me to fly.io where I had to sign in with my credentials, and Codex has just set everything up. It's created an organization for me. All right, so honestly, the favorite part for me about using agents is the setup. I don't have to set up anything because there was already a deployment skill inside of the repository. So I just gave the repository over to Codex. So what I basically did was I initiated the entire organization by myself, and then I handed over the deploy skill to Codex. And you can just see that it confirms that this is my Fly account and my billing before I do anything. It's wiring up the email sign up with a one-time login link, and it runs live health checks and hands me back the actual URLs. And just because I've been seeing a lot of comments on X, you don't need Slack for this. QM has a native web UI. Slack is just an optional connector. So when the deploy asked about Slack, I skipped it, and the whole thing is going to run in the browser. So let's just quickly give it the details that it needs so that it can start running. All right, so I set the brain to Codex, and I leave the security posture on auto, which means that the same default that screens untrusted external data before it's going to reach the model. All right, so as soon as I open the URL, I had to sign in, and using resend, I got an email sign in link. I clicked on that link and I was able to sign in. And this is the web portal for QM. Now let's quickly just give it a prompt. And I don't want to write the code, so I'm just going to tell Codex in plain English exactly what I want: a form with a title, a severity, a description, a dashboard that lists everything. And I want to publish this as an internal app. And I want the file link. So let's give Codex the prompt. And this is what I was telling you about. It's not answering me in the chat like Codex would. It's building inside its own durable sandbox on Fly, and that's staying up live between sessions. And you can see that it's going to hand me a URL eventually. All right, so once we were done doing everything, all right, so this is the final URL that we got. And we had resend plugged in. So anytime somebody wants to log in, resend sent me an email to sign in. And once I signed in, this was the final layout of the doom scroll portal, which I made using QM. So I picked Codex as the brain and Pi is the harness, but you guys can set up whatever you like to. And now we're going to build an internal bugs report web app, which going to be basically, I'm just going to tell this agent exactly what I want, which is a form with a title, a severity, a description, and a dashboard that lists everything and publishes it as an internal app. Now, one caveat is that the only way to get links or internal links is to deploy this on AWS. But since I'm doing this with Fly, I actually plugged in getting Vercel URLs instead of AWS. So if you're on Fly, you will have to manually input that. It takes a minute, and Vercel is really easy to work with once you have the CLI tool. So let's see what happens. I'm hoping that we get the Vercel CLI URL for this bug report app. So I asked the agent to create the internal report on Vercel because otherwise you can't unless you deploy the agent on AWS. But since I'm deploying this on fly.io, I'm just going to use Vercel, and I'm going to paste my security credentials, and it's going to store these credentials in the keychain. So let's see if this agent is actually able to deploy this internal report to Vercel. All right, so another issue is that all of these agents mostly always just create your database on SQLite, and to deploy to Vercel, you need a durable storage. So it's going to do all of that again, and then it's going to redeploy and verify the live form in the dashboard. All right, and this is the moment that I wanted you to see. It's not answering me in the chat. It's building inside its own durable sandbox and the little computer that stays up between sessions. And a minute later, it's handed me a real URL with the password so that only I can access it. And it's a live internal bugs report. Let's just try to file a new bug in this bug report. And let's give this bug the name of login button misaligned, and keep the severity as low and keep the description null, and submit this report. And it should ideally show under all reports. Yep. So you can see that this bug got filed and it's working. It's an internal tool that did not exist 90 seconds ago. And I never opened an editor. It's an internal web apps feature. So let's just go back, and we assume that you want to ask the agent to open a PR in our repository and have a pull request. So let's just do that. So now it's going to be like a real engineering task and not just like a throwaway build this. I asked Codex to drop the code into a repository and open a pull request. It's going to open a branch and open a PR and wait for the CI to go green and then eventually merge. So every one of those actions is logged under its identity, and the agent acts like a person under the audit. And that's the exact security posture that comes alongside using QM. So this agent is going to merge this repository after checking for the CI. Let's just move on to another feature called the cron. So let's just assume that I want this thing to automatically nag us. And since we're skipping Slack, I will just have it use resend to drop a bug count every weekday at 9 a.m. into our web room and email me a copy. Instead of sending that prompt to our agent, we can just set up a new cron here and ask the agent to set that up. Let's see if this works. If not, we just go back to the chat that we were having around the bug reports and have it set up the cron there. All right. So CI found one issue in the apps repository, which was a linting failure on the branch, and it's going to actually check that out and rerun the full workflow before merging. So this is great. And on the side, we already have a cron created to just report us the bugs in the bug report at 9 a.m. every single day. So this is also excellent. All right, email sending seems to be not happening because I haven't set up resend properly, and it's only been set for giving people access to this product. But once I do set that up, we can get that email stuff also plugged in pretty easily. The best part about this agent is also that we have a keychain of credentials and nobody can access my Vercel token or my Git, and none of these passwords or secrets have the chance to be leaked or hacked from here. In addition to that, there is an apps tab where I can choose to share this bug reports app with anybody else in the organization. We also have a memory for now because this is the only app that we've created. This is the only app in the memory, but we can choose to give it more memory, give it more facts that it remembers. There's already a bunch of skills that have been preloaded that this agent can easily use, but we can choose to add more and more skills as we feel is necessary. There's a very interesting file system. You can upload any files from your setup that you want. I have not uploaded the files because for the sake of this demo, that was not needed. But this is also great when if you want the agent to work on PDFs or if you want the agent to work on Excel sheets, a good agent needs to have a file system alongside running in a durable sandbox. So this is a great feature as well. You can see that you've already seen the chats, and you saw that as soon as we wanted to create a cron, it took us back to the chats and it actually created a cron where it would be reminding us of all the bugs that it found inside this app itself. And in addition to that, we created a bug reports app in under 90 seconds and deployed it to Vercel directly from the chat. And it's going to deploy to Vercel every single time now. In addition to that, we also had it create a PR, run CI, and merge that. It found some issues while it was running CI. So that's also a good sign. The reason why this repository was so powerful for me was because of the multiplayer model. Private and shared scopes at the same time is generally hard and nobody is actually nailing it at the moment. And also the fact that there is a swappable brain inside of the Pi harness means that I'm never kind of using a single model. even though I did just use one model for this, I can keep on choosing between models. I just put in the OpenAI API key for now, but you can have an API key for OpenRouter or Vercel or any other model service provider, and you can keep on choosing between the models that you like. In addition to that, there was the security design, and that's something that I've not found in a lot of agent building applications or a studio of this sort. All the credentials are kept separate. And in addition to that, there is a posture where you can choose whether the agents run dangerously or medium, or they ask you for permission for every single thing. So the only issue that I have had with setting up QM is the infra. You need a database, you need a Slack app, and it's not a clone and run. You can't just clone it and run it. You actually have to do some things on your own. For example, the deployment skill did not have the setup for Sprite, so we had to do that ourselves. Even though in the QM, I don't know whether it's because of a later PR, but it does use the sprites on fly to run the backend, which it does not mention in the backend skills. To have an internal shareable link, you need to run it on AWS. It's not very compatible with fly.io. And for the sake of time, and because I didn't want to use an AWS account, because that in itself, setting that up is a task for me, I just delegated that to using the Vercel CLI to create Vercel links. So I feel that this is a good starting point for a company because you can have multiple different people using the same system. But at the same time, you will need to set up the infrastructure for this yourself, and you will need to customize a lot of the things. So if I were to rate this repository on power and capability, I would say probably an 8 out of 10. And on polish and design and the UI friendliness, I would also give it probably like a 9 on 10, because I feel like all these tabs are pretty much sufficient. And if somebody wants to update these, they can while setting this up. Ease of getting started, I would give it a 5 on 10, because you have to set up a lot of the infra stuff yourself. But given that this is something that they use internally and they've just exported it, I feel like it's fine for them. And a clear signal on who should not use it are solo indie hackers, but for a team trying to run on agents instead of, just trying to use multiple different tools. I feel that this is one of the most credible options or opportunities that I've seen. So overall, I'd give QM like an 8.5 on 10. And with that being said, it seems like the pull request has also been merged. I just got an email. Has it? Let's just see and check it out. Alrighty. Yep. So seems like the CI was completed and this PR can easily be merged. So you can confirm merge and merge this. But yeah, overall, I'd say it was a great experience just working on QM. And I feel like it's a great step that companies like YC and a lot of big enterprise companies, I just saw Cloudflare ship something in open source as well. So seems like with agents, the major GTM for adoption has been open source, and open source is leading the way. So that is QM, the system that YC runs itself on. And now for the rest of us,